Hi, Bill Henry here with Robinson and Henry. I had a few little technical issues, but hopefully everyone is out there. So today we're talking about powers of attorney, and I think in today's current crisis situation with the pandemic going on, pretty important to discuss. So normally I do this in a live seminar. Apparently, of course, we're not doing that. Can't have more than 10 people available. So I thought I would at least broadcast it out and talk about, well, what are powers of attorney? Why do we need them? And of course, how do we get them? What do we do with these things? So let's kind of start with a story. So I have a client, and they're two brothers. And these brothers had a parent, and their parent is in Colorado. Well, what happened to their parent? One day, of course, over time, he ended up with dementia and couldn't make decisions for himself. So that means he couldn't write his own checks. He couldn't make his own healthcare decisions. And so the question from the brothers were to me, well, what do we do? How do we make these decisions? Well, of course, the first thing I asked them is, do you have powers of attorney in place? And there's really two powers of attorney that we're talking about. So we have medical power of attorney, so who can make medical decisions for me? And then we have a financial power of attorney. So if I can't make my own financial decisions, who's going to write my checks and pay my bills and just generally carry on my own personal business if I can't do it for myself? Well, the answer was for these two children that they didn't have a power of attorney for their father. So they couldn't make the medical decisions and they couldn't make the financial decisions. So what did they do? Well, unfortunately, in those situations, really only one thing that we can do. We've got to go to court. We've got to ask the court for what's called a guardianship. Guardianship just means that someone gets to make decisions for someone else. We can think of it kind of like a parent and a child. A parent can make decisions for their child. Well, the same thing can happen, and the court can put a guardianship in place, and they can also do something called a conservatorship. And although the court's got the power to do this, it's very expensive. Attorneys have to go to court to get them. You've got to report to the court, so there's a lot of involvement by the court, and most times people don't like that. People don't like having the court in their life and court visitors and the whole court procedure. And so how do we avoid these things? Well, that's with these powers of attorney. And so again, there's two types in Colorado. We've got a financial power of attorney, so also called a general durable power of attorney. And then we have a medical power of attorney. Medical power of attorney, just like it sounds, who can make medical decisions for me? And then financial power of attorney, who can make those financial decisions for me? And we can think about a power of attorney sort of like an employer-employee relationship, where I'm just letting somebody else do things for me in addition to me, not in replace of me. So we're not taking away anyone's rights, but what we are doing is we are saying that, you know, somebody else can make these decisions, particularly whenever I can't make my own decisions. And in today's times where we're hearing about people going to the hospital and these terrible, terrible things, but we also have to be cognizant of that my spouse may need to make financial decisions, sell the house or write checks, close credit cards. And if we don't have a financial power of attorney in place, it can be nearly impossible in those situations, particularly if the spouse isn't on the account. So powers of attorney are used during life while we're just incapacitated for the most part. And what we're doing again is we're avoiding guardianships and conservatorships. And something else to talk about is in our powers of attorney, well, what if we did need this guardianship and conservatorship? So let me tell you another story, is that I have clients and they do have a power of attorney over their mom. But unfortunately, their mom has dementia and mom doesn't want to leave the house. Well, just like I mentioned before, is that our powers of attorney are in addition to our powers. We can revoke them at any time. And if mom doesn't want to leave the house, mom doesn't have to leave the house. So that's a situation where we would go to court and we would go get a guardianship. But if you have a power of attorney in place, in those powers of attorney, you're allowed to say who you want to be your guardian. So if it ever got to that kind of point, then at least you're saying who you do want the court to appoint over you as your guardian. So again, Bill Henry here. We're trying to send a message to everyone that if you've got any issues, whether it has to do with estate planning like we're talking about here, or alternatively employment issues, foreclosure issues, litigation, lawsuits, businesses that just don't know what to do, I do want to send the message that there's 25 attorneys at our firm, and during this crisis period, we're offering a free consultation. We don't really care what the matter is. We'll talk to you. And I can tell you that the attorneys, although we have never been through a pandemic before, we've been through a lot of different issues and we've seen a lot of different things. So if you're facing struggles beyond the healthcare, and we're talking about financial struggles, job loss, employers that aren't handling this properly, or if you are an employer and you're wondering whether or not, how am I going to handle my financial distress that I'm in? There's government programs out there right now that they're releasing to give access to money, for example. So all these things, our attorneys have a wide variety of experience. And so if you are facing any struggles, just know you don't need to be alone. There are attorneys out there, they know what they're doing. And again, we're offering a free consultation for anyone. If you got any questions on this field, please feel free to post them in the comments, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.